That's really kind of one of the most special parts of it, is getting to talk to a really great entrepreneur who's been really successful, and also like you get to drive the conversation and have it be that's ideally, and have it really come from you. Most people find that to be really good. Again, these are amazing people that have built billion-dollar companies, or some of the best investors in the world, and not surprisingly to me, but maybe surprising. It's actually easier to get them to come talk to all of you than to get them to do lots of different things. And that's one of the superpowers you have as a student, is you can get people to come help you and do things for you. And so you should use that. But that's Founder Stories, and so that'll be the main point of the class. And like I said, we'll be out at 6. Next week is one of the only classes that's different. Next week we have a co-founder speed pitch, where basically you're going to all introduce yourselves to each other and to me. And so I hope we get through everybody in the class. We'll get through as many as we can. And then everybody can submit one as well. We do kind of do them online too. But basically you get up and you give a 2-minute pitch. I'll explain what it is. You'll know what's coming. But it's basically a pitch for yourself. And for many of you, it's like an opportunity to talk about like what you're interested in, or if you're looking for co-founders or need help with what you're working on, or anything like that. And that's our goal, is to go help you do that. And if you don't know what you want to do, you can still pitch how you could help, or like what you could do, or how you could contribute. Another thing we'll do, one of the only assignments of this class, this is mostly a come here and be part of it class. There's not many assignments or things you have to do. But one of the assignments is a lean canvas. You can see what it is at leancanvas.com. And a lean canvas is basically like a 1-page business plan. And so that's, again, it can be something that you're really working on, or it could be something that you're just thinking about and trying, or like, kind of experimenting with, because it's just something you write down. But you should, everyone needs to submit one before the end of the semester. And each week for the open pitch pizza, in addition to having free pizza and great feedback from me and whoever else is here, we give away $100. So whoever, one of the pitches gets a $100 bill or $100 Venmo when they leave. And so trying to, keep it real and make it fun, and, give you even one more little incentive to pitch every week, because somebody's going to walk away with $100. So it could be you. So at the end, on the last class, right before Thanksgiving, we have a kind of big final pitch competition, and we'll bring in someone else to help be one of the an awesome guest judge. And that night we give away $1,000. So again, this part of the class that's part of the participation part of the class. You're not getting graded on it, but you do get paid. So hopefully we'll see many of you pitching each week, and then pitching at the end. And then the last week of the class, right after Thanksgiving, is we'll be doing interviews for the lab. And so there's 2 parts to this class. There's the seminar that you're in now. This is pass-fail. It's open to anybody. It's primarily a speaker series and a chance for you to interact and ask questions and learn and meet each other. And but through this, I'm trying to meet all of you, so that I figure out who are entrepreneurs on campus that are actually building stuff and doing things, or want to do things. And not that it only comes from this class. We also find people other ways. And then in the spring, we have the lab, and the lab is more probably like what you'd think of as an accelerator. So it's over the course of the semester. You apply to be part of it. You have to already have a startup. It's not like I have an idea and I'm going to go build it. It's like I built something. I'm ready to go test it and take it to people and get feedback and learn about it. And so there's usually a dozen companies that participate, and we come to this same place, but instead of the chairs, we pull out all the tables, and every team has a different table. And instead of speakers every week we bring in probably about 20 mentors who are founders and investors and CEOs from companies here and companies that are visiting and alumni companies, and they're getting matched up and meeting with people every week. They're talking to them just about their business and trying to help them push it forward. And at the end of that class, one of the companies gets a $25,000 investment prize. That's also like a real investment. So, class rules. Our goal is to have the room full. It's better to have people getting credit for it, because if you don't sign up and get credit, then they don't think anyone's actually taking the class, and they won't have me keep teaching it. But so it's better if you take it. But really, my goal is to just get great students in here. So you do have to be a student, or faculty kind of thing. But if you are part of the university, anyone's welcome to come any week. Everyone's welcome to come pitch at Open Pitch Pizza. Well, there's a sign-up form, so anybody can go sign up. We'll give you all priority because you're in the class, but usually there's room for other people to come pitch. I hope there's not. I hope you guys take up all the spots, but usually there's room. The class is open in that way, but we want to keep this a safe place for students and where everybody feels comfortable, and part of the goal is to make the students the priority, right? Like that you're the ones that have access to ask all the questions and things like that. So it's not a place where you can invite guests, as much as I totally appreciate the sentiment. Usually, if I don't say that, people will show up with like someone they want to bring that's like a parent or someone that they work with, or like someone else that's not a student. And just for like the sake of keep prioritizing you as the students, we'd really like to keep it all students in the room. But everybody from UT is welcome. So again, we'll put up the quiz, not this week, but in the future, we'll put up a QR code at the beginning of class. For the quiz, it's gonna be like 3 to 5 questions really fast, just to make sure that you actually watched the video or read that article or listened to the podcast or whatever that was the prep for the speaker. And the reason we do that is just because you're gonna have a way better interaction with the speaker if you already kind of are a little bit familiar with what they're doing and you're not just hearing it for the first time and you had a chance to think about it and hear some of the things they said, and you're gonna have better questions for them and things like that. And that's why we're doing that. We're trying to make this a really great experience for everybody. As I said, those people coming up here are really awesome, and they're donating their time and being great about that. So it's important, and they're usually friends of mine, and so yeah, like I wanted them to feel really important too. And so that, to me, that's everybody being really respectful for them. If you fall asleep, I will throw things at you. If you I prefer you not leaving in the middle of class, or don't try not being late, because all those things. Again, if I'm up here speaking and somebody walks in right now, it's not like the end of the world, but it's distracting, and I notice, and suddenly, or if somebody leaves, they probably have really good reason to go leave, but I'm thinking, are they not liking what I'm saying? That's just how life works, and we want to be respectful to them. So again, we want this to be a safe place for all of you, hopefully, where you can ask anything, and that's, again, part of it being all students, and part of us knowing that and being comfortable with that, knowing that's why we're here. But it should be a safe place to ask, any questions that you want. There's no dumb questions. And it's also not a place where there's any secrets. When you're pitching, you shouldn't be pitching because, it's a secret, because you're telling a whole bunch of people. We can't stop, we should be respectful. Don't try to do anything that would cause anybody any harm. But the whole point of pitching is to get the word out. And if you're here talking about stuff, if our speakers are up here talking about things, it's generally, not a secret. If it is, if they'd like you to keep something confidential, they'll ask. All right, so that was a lot of stuff. And I've got a few more things, but why don't we see what kind of questions you have, particularly about that kind of stuff. I may say if I'm coming up.
Lab, is it like a part of the accelerator, or just pre-seed, kind of like you just have an idea and co-founder?
Yeah, so the lab is officially part of the university. It's something that I started in 2011 with Bob Metcalf when we started this class, and it was because there's actually a lot more resources at the university now for entrepreneurship. It's pretty great, but at the time there was a feeling that there weren't nearly enough, and so this was like students were asking for something like this, and so the lab is. And that's why we kind of have the two parts, one is meant to be really open and accessible to as many people as possible, and one's meant to be really exclusive and really focused on the students that are really working on something real. And so it is structured like an accelerator in that it's about 3 months long. It has a cohort of a dozen companies that you're with. You get matched up with mentors who are trying to help you. There's a demo day at the end where you get to get up and present in front of a lot of people, and there's a prize, the investment prize. Every team also gets a $1,000 stipend that's just through a grant, through an endowment we have for the class. You also, usually, this varies, get $5,000 in AWS credits or Google credits or whatever we can go get for you, things like that. And then in addition to that, you get a Capital Factory membership. So being part of Capital Factory has kind of different levels. And the first level is just like being part of the public that come to all the things that happen here all the time, because there's stuff here every night. There's stuff going on that you could all come to. There's a calendar, and most of it's open to everybody. The first level of membership is to be a paying member and have an access card and sometimes a place to sit or an office or something like that. And then the next level is when we invest in you and we're working really closely with you to help you raise money and things like that. And so when you're in the lab, you get a free membership like you were paying for all the students that are part of the lab, which means you have an access card. It means you can come here whenever you want and you can work from here. It means you can, it means you're on the directory and you can see everybody else that's here. And you're also part of the mentor network, which means in addition to the mentors in the class, you can sign up for the Capital Factory mentors and all those types of things. It's not the same as if Capital Factory invests in you. There's there's other levels beyond that are deeper, but it is really awesome to get access to all that, and you get it for the semester plus the whole summer. Group limits in the lab. There's no limits. This is entrepreneurship, but there's good guidelines, and so I'd say there's always at least one company that's just one person, but it's usually better to have more than one person. You're usually going to get more stuff done, and there's some companies, when you start to have 5 or 6 co-founders, it's usually not real. It's not everybody is really a co-founder or contributing the same way. So, but there's all kinds of different things, No, it's not fine. The reason why we're doing all this is to get everybody in here and have it start on time and not have people interrupting while we're going. So, again, this class officially starts at 3:30, and the intent of that was to hopefully, as people were doing their scheduling, still leave them time to travel here. But it is really important that we want you here on time. So thank you for asking, and I'm sorry for not being able to give a more flexible answer, but that's what we're hoping for. Other questions?
Will these sessions be recorded by any chance?
We do record these. There's a camera right up there in the middle. It's black. It's very small. And so we're actually recording this right now, so we'll be able to post this for you. The recordings that we do here, we'll kind of figure out. Most of them we'll post on our internal Slack channel for students, so it's not something everybody can see, but it's something that you guys can see. And it's generally not meant for you to be in it. It's meant to be of what's up here, but your questions and things could be in it. And then when we do the pitching, I'm kind of curious what everybody's feedback is, but my inclination is to record the pitches and post them to the Slack channel and post them to our Twitter, and try to get you guys more exposure. But if people don't want us to, we don't have to. But we can, and that would get you more attention for what you're doing. All right, there'll be more time for more questions. I've got a few more things. Let me come back to you. So Open Pitch Pizza. This is going to be, again, starting with the 3rd class, so 2 weeks from now. And this is how it works. We'll ask people to sign up in advance, so which makes our lives a lot easier, because then we just kind of know who's coming up, and so it helps us if you do sign up in advance. But people will line up on the side, and you'll be giving a 2-minute pitch. 2 minutes is really fast. You've got to keep it really simple, but that's part of why it's good and why you want to practice. And so a lot of times if you do it, and then I'll be sitting somewhere I can see you, and usually with the guest speaker, and the two of us will either just give you feedback, or we might turn around and give your pitch back to you to try to give you feedback on your pitch. Your pitch can be at an investor pitch, you should invest in my company, or it could be a customer pitch, here's why my product's so cool and you should use it, or why it's great. And again, our intent is to record it and post it, but only if you don't want us to, we won't. That's not, we're not trying to do anything you don't want to. And you will come up and line up on your left over here when you're going to go pitch. And that way, when we ideally, if you're going to be pitching, again, get here kind of early, get your pizza. That way, we want to start right on time, right after the quiz, and get into the pitches so as many people can pitch as possible. And that'll be up to 10 students a week, and every week somebody gets $100. All right. Sign up is pitch.longhornstartup.com. We try to keep things easy. You can sign up. You can tell anybody else to sign up, and you can sign up more than once. And then so the night before class or the morning of class, we're going to be looking at that. If you sign up 5 minutes before class, we might not see it because we're doing a bunch of other stuff, right? So but yeah, it's really helpful if you can sign up before, and then you'll get prioritized. Questions about, I saw some questions. So questions about pitching or anything else?
Is it mainly a verbal pitch?
It is mainly a verbal pitch. There's really not time with 2 minutes to do much else. If you wanted to put up one slide and leave one slide up while you're talking, that can be pretty effective. One really helpful image, or if it's a diagram or something, just put your logo up. It's probably not worth it. although at the same time, like putting up like, sometimes we have somewhere you can write, like putting your contact info up is actually really good. Like, like if you can help me or you can, like here's my contact. So that might be a thing to put on a slide. But it's less about giving a bunch of slides and more about usually telling, and we'll talk about pitching, but telling a story, and explaining what you do and trying to connect with people who can help you.
So does it have to be like a startup you're currently working on, or can it just be like an idea you have?
It's practice pitching.
Okay.
It's better if it's a real startup.
Right.
Like I want to find real startups. Like I'm hoping I'm going to hear about real startups that I can go get into the lab or invest in or like help some other way. But it's totally great if you come up and just, pitch different ideas or different things. And a lot of times I've seen people come up and over the course of the semester pitch 3 or 4 different things, and then one of those is what they end up bringing to the lab that they end up working on and and doing more with. Did you have a question?
I have the same question.
Okay.
So if there are more than 10 students who sign up for a pitch, how are they prioritized?
Magic. But I mean, it's a little magic. But we're going to try to give you guys preference first. If somebody's pitched a lot, we might give people a chance who haven't pitched before. And then if we really had this problem, there were so many pitches, and we probably would prioritize the things that look more farther along. But usually there's room for everyone to pitch. I hope that's our problem. Is there's not enough room for everyone to pitch. Is there one over here?
Once you win the $100, are you not allowed to pitch again with the same idea?
You're allowed to pitch every time. I would say it probably gets harder to win.
Okay.
Again, we're gonna, the bar is gonna get higher but the last day, anybody, it's reset. Like for the 1,000, anybody can win the 1,000.
Is the lab cohort capped at a certain amount of companies?
12, a dozen, yeah.
Is it going to be a single person pitching? Like, let's say 2 people are working on the same pitch. Like, could they go up together to present it? Or
With 2 minutes, it's really hard to have 2 people talk. So I'd say good idea with that would be have one person pitch one week and have another person pitch the next week. Different people get to practice. These are great questions.
If you took this class one semester, right, and then 2 semesters down the line, would you still be able to join the lab?
Yes, totally. And in fact, and that's probably very common, because again, you have to have something real to join the lab, so it might take you, or you might not get in the first year because there's other things that are further along, and then you get further along and you get in the next year. Happens, right? I've had, not a lot, but 2 or 3 people take the lab 2 or 3 times, different companies, they were working on one startup, then they were good. I was I got to know the person, and they were, in fact, the first startup didn't work out. It doesn't faze me at all. They're trying the next thing. It was awesome. Someone has taken the seminar more than once.
So if we do the pitch, are we allowed to close the pitch with samples and business cards, things like that?
Sure. It just fit into your time. But yeah, show and tell, special effects, handouts are all helpful, extra good.
Is there by any chance a list of speakers beforehand, maybe in advance, a week or 2, or?
Of who's going to be speaking?
Yes.
You mean the guest speakers?
The guest speakers,
Yes. In fact, don't stress about this at all because this is my superpower, but I'm a little behind on, I usually would have the whole list for you now. I just confirmed Jason Karp, who's the owner of True Food and the creator of Who Kitchen, which is this really awesome healthy chocolate foods and stuff. He's really great. I'm excited for him to be coming. I've got a bunch of others in play, but if you've heard some of the other examples of who has come, they're just some of the best CEOs and founders in town. I usually have some kind of a theme. One year it was all people that had graduated from UT. It's usually a lot of people that graduated from UT, but one year it was all UT alumni. Another year it was all women. Another year it was maybe all something else. And so that's it will be that. But there's just it's a really big range of just awesome, interesting people with different stories, different things that they're bringing to the table.
So is it open to the alumni after for the lab?
The lab?
Is it open to alumni also?
No, it's only for students that are enrolled. If you're part of the lab, and if the team gets accepted to the lab, they can have people that are part of their company that are not students because they're a real company. So they might have alumni that are working on the company, and they can come to some of the things and participate a little bit. But someone had the person in the class or the team, there have to be people in the class that are students.
And my other question is, would you yourself either talk to people because you are one of the most successful people in Austin.
All right, no need to flatter me, but you're going to get one today. Don't worry. Yes, the answer is yes. You're going to get your. I give the first talk, so you'll get one today.
Where is the link to the Slack?
Maybe I'm just guessing, but try slack.longhornstartup.com.
That also probably
How important is it for us to join the Slack?
You'll die if you don't. It's like life or death. Yeah.
That's good to know.
No, I don't know. It's not that important. Like, if you want, it's a way that you can message everybody else, right? And there's all these other people that used to take the class that are still on there that you can also message. So I would use it to like post stuff about your startup or ask for help or ask for advice, things like that. That's all. It's not like, I wouldn't say it's critical. If you have like a thing against Slack, a religious problem, anything like that, it's okay. Like, you don't have to do it.
How big are the teams that join Longhorn Startup Lab?
Usually 2 to 4 people.
Do the lab take only place in the spring, or is there some other form of the lab during the fall and stuff?
No, just we alternate. We used to do them both at once, but it was just kind of a lot of stuff. Long day. You guys have a lot of good questions. All right, I'm going to keep going a little bit more. There will be more time for more questions. Not now. Okay, read these books. There's lots of good books. These are both written by 2 people in Austin, 2 people I know really well, 2 people that have spoken to this class. That's not why you should read the book. Those are just coincidence. But Running Lean is really about the lean startup methodology. Has anybody heard of lean startup? Some of you have. Lean startup is just one of many ways to think about how you problem solve and how you think about your company. And it's not necessarily, there's no one way to think about everything. But it's if you're not sure where to start, it's a good way to think about product market fit and what am I building? Am I building the right thing? And what problem am I solving? And in particular, this book is very like practical. It's kind of like very much like step 1, do this. You know, like I feel like there's lots of books that like talk about why things are great, but then you don't know what to go do. This book's like, here's how you go do it, and really helpful. And in a similar way, Startup Success is written by one of my co-founders of Capital Factory, the chairman, Gordon Doherty. He is widely regarded as like the most helpful person here, like the best mentor, best person you want to talk to, best person to help figure things out, best person you could ever work for. Like he's just really great. He's worked in a lot of different ways in a lot of different companies, and this, you know, and he's been investing with me for more than a decade in, you know, like close to 1,000 companies. Like we're 2 of the most active investors in the country, and so we've seen a lot of stuff, right? And so he wrote down all the stuff. You know, like it's really, really good. And the book's really good. He also teaches something about once a quarter called Founders Academy. I think the link for that hopefully works is foundersacademy.capitalfactory.com. And I think it's usually $99, but I bet you guys can get in for free. And it's basically like usually like a 2 or 3 day boot camp with a few hours a day where he teaches things from the book, and he's really great. So I'd really highly recommend you check that out. But these are 2 books. We're not going to quiz you on either of the books. Just if you really care about the stuff and you want to learn about it, those are the books I would go read, go check out. All right. A couple people that have come through the class. So that's Pamela Valdez. She lives in Mexico City right now. Maybe we'll get her back to Austin sometime soon. She was here the first semester we ever taught the class back on campus. She was a Mexican exchange student. It was her freshman year. And she's incredible. She came up to me the first day of class. She said, "I've got this incredible startup." And I was like, "Awesome, tell me about it." She's like, "Well, actually, it's this Facebook group with 20,000 people on it, all who speak Spanish, who all are really into books." I'm like, "Awesome. So what's your startup?" She's like, "That's my startup." I was like, and honestly, at the time, I was like, "That's cute," but she actually took that and turned it into a really incredible company that we've invested in, that's gone through Y Combinator, she was a Thiel Fellow, and that's raised millions of dollars from Excel and from others, and it's now it's kind of like the leading audio platform for audiobooks, podcasts, and content in Latin American Spanish, and which is a really big market, and obviously I'm sure you all know audiobooks and and audio turned out to be huge. So it sounded, and what she was onto in 2011 that, kind of probably sounds obvious to you guys, but was not obvious then, was the idea of like launching a company with a community, which is a way lots of people do things now. And like people write books and YouTube videos about like how to go do this, and like this was way before anybody was going and doing it. And I looked at her like she was crazy, right? But she was totally on it. Suits was the winner last semester. They took the class last year. Anyone know what Suits is? What's Suits?
They're a platform to claim class action lawsuits and gain from things like that.
Good start. That was the start at a pitch. Anyone else going to give a pitch for Suits?
Something they talked about is that like if we were to do a class action lawsuit as the other person said, like we could be off like maybe a couple $100 or something like that. So they kind of related, like they kind of got my attention by like saying this is something that can help. Not
Yeah.
just like basically something that they
So Suits is an iPhone app that any of you can go download, and on the app you can see different class action lawsuits that you might be able to participate, that you might not have known about. Like, oh, did you buy this? Have you been a customer of this? Oh, you're eligible to opt in to participate, and they tell you how to go do it, and if you're eligible. And then also you can say, I think I want to create a class action lawsuit. Like, I'm really upset. Like, someone should do something about this. And you can submit something and try to get other people to pile on to then go sue somebody. And it was a bunch of law students at UT, and they built it, and it's kind of awesome. And they won $25,000 investment. Lynx Labs. This also, sounds not that cool now as it was then, but because every iPhone can do this now. But back before every iPhone could do this, they had built a camera that was stereoscopic and could basically scan things in 3D. And so they had one of the first 3D cameras that could go turn around and basically scan you in 3D and then turn around and create a 3D model of the room, of a person, of something else. It was sold to a company called Occipital. Flow Recruit is Catherine Allen. Catherine was an awesome entrepreneur student, and Flo started out in fraternity and sorority recruiting because that's what she knew, but then got into legal recruiting, which is where there was more money. And she's that company's doing great, and she's raised a bunch of money and is still running that now. New Breaks started out as New Wash. They were a bunch of undergrads. They had a business washing cars. They would wash them at night while they were in the parking garage or at your house or something like that. And so basically every night after class, we had class actually in the evenings then, they would leave here to go wash cars all night. And they were super hustlers. New Wash did pretty well, but then they discovered through that brake repair was a better mobile service than car washes as far as margins and what market and things like that. And so they've shifted primarily to New Brakes. And this had to be 3 or 4 years ago. They raised like $14 million or something like that. Like, I mean, they're blowing and going. Really interesting company, doing great. Hitch. Anybody use Hitch? What's Hitch?
You can like hitchhike from like Austin to Houston, from city to city. It's cheaper. You can have like ride from Austin to Houston for $20 if it's the right time. So it's a big deal.
Great pitch. I see why you said hitchhike. I would probably avoid that word if I were them, just because doesn't feel like hitchhiking. It's not unsafe. But basically, it's like ride sharing between cities for college kids, because college kids in particular are often going home from one city to another for the weekend and coming back, and sometimes they're drivers and sometimes they're riders, so it's actually a really efficient marketplace. And there's these certain routes between certain cities, like Austin and Dallas was one of the first ones they started. And it's a unique ride-sharing market that's also done really well. And some other great people that have been part of it. Jonathan was one of our first TA the first semester. He's gone on to be founder at multiple different companies, and is just a serious operator. He created, in addition to being a software guy and working on a bunch of interesting software companies, he created an exercise product called the Chop Fit, which is like an iPhone-enabled like heavy axe you like swing for exercise, and they have all these workout things with it. That was just kind of funny, but I thought it was kind of awesome. But he worked on a bunch of other interesting companies too. Nick Spiller was here. Maybe we lost him. He was in the back a few minutes ago. Nick was here our first semester. He took it the class the first year. He has since then gone on to work for Capital Factory 3 times. He still is working here now. He was working at Favor Delivery for a while. If you guys remember Favor, which was bought by HEB, helped them expand to a bunch of markets. He now runs our venture team across the state, helping us to recruit startups for Capital Factory, and has been involved in investing in a lot of different companies. JD Weinstein also was there that first year. He also came to work for Capital Factory for a couple of years, then went off to work at a venture fund. Now is the head of global venture capital at Oracle, so really interesting role. Kelsey, she was here one of the earlier years, and she also came to work here for a couple of years as a venture. She was a venture partner, a venture associate at Silverton Partners, another really great VC firm here in town, and now she's really active investing in blockchain, and I think she's off mostly in New York, but I see her every once in a while. And I have a picture of Catherine Allen, but that was another one I already mentioned from Flow Recruit. So a lot of great people that have come through the class and come through the lab. Another break for questions. We questioned you out. All right. Co-founder speed pitch. Did I already go through this? I think I did. Okay, now this is what you're going to do next week. Okay, this is the intro next week, not the I'm speed pitching for pizza every week. This is the I'm introducing myself next week. So forget the attend.Longhorn Startup, where that's if we do it on Zoom, which we're not. If we ever have a class on Zoom, that's the link. We'll give that out later. But the pitch is what you'll do. And when you get up here, you'll be able to see it back there, so you'll see this list of what you're supposed to say. But you're going to get up and give a 2-minute pitch. And you can do it however you want, but this is a good suggestion. First of all, we're trying to make introductions to each other. So people actually hearing your name and being able to spell it is pretty helpful, because if they're going to have to go look you up. So say your name. You don't have to spell it, but I actually usually recommend it. Most people wouldn't know how to spell your name from just how you said it. What are you studying and what year are you? What are you good at? And if in particular things that might be helpful to a startup. I am a really good programmer. I know a lot about online marketing. I am really good at building robots. I am a really great chef. Whatever it is that, I'm really good at copywriting. Whatever it is that you're really interested in, or you think you could contribute to a team, that would be a good thing to say. And kind of related to that, what are you really interested in? What are you really passionate about? More than just the skills, I'm really interested in autonomous cars. I'm really interested in human spaceflight. I'm really interested in humanoid robots. I'm really interested in new types of food that are healthier. Whatever it is that you care about, those are things that you'd mention, because those are the things that other people are going to hear and think of and say, oh wow, either I'm really interested in that too, or oh, I know my roommate's really interested in that. They'd be a really good person to introduce you to. And most importantly, who do you need to meet? And so if you're working on something, then notice I didn't say pitch your startup in here anywhere. You can kind of vaguely, when you say you're passionate about, you could say that does say what is your startup there. So that doesn't mean give your whole startup pitch, but you could say I have a startup I'm working on that does blank, blank, and blank, right? And then who you need to meet is, wow, I really need to meet a co-founder for my startup that has this skill set, that can build, that can write code, can build stuff. I need a co-founder that knows how to go talk to customers and sell stuff. I really need to meet people who work in this certain industry, because I need to talk to them. I really need to meet restaurant owners, because that's who we want to go sell stuff to. I really need to meet someone at the Army, because I think they could really use the stuff that I'm interested in. Whatever it might be, this is your place to make asks, because then we can figure out who to make intros for. And I know a lot of people, so I can make a lot of intros. I'll be listening, and I'll be writing stuff down, and I'll be making suggestions of who I can introduce you to. But really, this is and I hope you all take this seriously, but all of you need to be part of this too. And if you think about it, there's probably about 90 people sitting in the room right now. Maybe it'll be 100 next week. And so we probably won't even have time for every single person to pitch, but say half of you got to up on stage, hopefully all. But if 50 people got up and pitched, and every one of you made one intro, you saw 50 different pitches, and out of 50 people, you could think of one person that could help one other person, then we would make 100 intros across all those different people, and I guarantee you that would make something happen. That would result in, don't worry about the waters, it's fine. That would result in something happening. So say your name again at the end. So you take this seriously, we'll go start 10 companies next week. Like, that's what will happen, because a bunch of people will get connected and they'll go start working on things, and then either in the lab next semester or whether it's, a year from now, they're going to be working on companies that we'll be doing things with. That's just actually how it happens. And yeah, I'll talk about that more. But anyway, that's our goal for next week.
This is the story of the little room over the pizza place at 315 Chestnut Street, the modest first-floor bedroom in Tallinn, Estonia, and the dusty basement at 1406 35th Street. It is the story of the old dining room table at 25th and Hoffman Avenue, the southbound bus barreling down I-95, and the second floor above the strip mall at Roble and El Camino.
This magic moment,
It is the story of where every great idea begins,
so different and so new.
where those with endless vision and an equal amount of audaciousness believed they had the power to do more, time and time again.
And then it happened.
At Dell, we're honored to be part of some of the world's great stories. Stories that began much the same way ours did, in a little dorm room, number 2713.
This magic moment.
All right, so now I'm going to tell you a little bit of my story. I'm going to start by introing with some other people's stories. So, has anybody been to that dorm room?
I live at 2513.
You live right near it?
I live under 2 floors underneath it, 2513.
What building is it?
Adobe.
In Dobie. So what happened in that dorm room?
They made Dell.
They made Dell.
Michael Dell, founded Dell.
Awesome. What did Dell do at the beginning? Does anybody know?
I believe Kate Graham on
Like kind of like put together computers.
yeah.
Yeah, like buy boards and cases and put more RAM in them or things than you could kind of buy by default, right? So yeah, Michael Dell started this, one of the biggest companies in the world in his dorm room at UT in 1984. Definitely one of the biggest success stories. Oh, there's Nick. One of the biggest success stories in Austin and at UT ever. And I've met Michael a couple times. Like, he's a really smart guy, really nice guy. I think he's done a lot of smart things. But he also really was able to take advantage of being in the right place at the right time and having this incredible market, right, of, at the time, PCs, just like everybody buying computers. And that was like a new thing. And like, there was just tons of people buying computers and everybody trying to figure out how to buy computers, and it was hard to buy computers. And he was able to tap into that and just start selling computers out of his dorm room. And then eventually drop out of school and just, build this business that became, things evolve and grow into other things. It became a much bigger business than that, and doing a lot of other things. But the timing of it, the fact that he was in this PC bubble, that was really important. Bubbles are not essential, but bubbles, when I look back at my story, and I'll tell you from my story, bubbles have been a big important part of my story too. And I find that often when I find something's really working for me, I'm caught up in something else that's bigger than me, right? Right now, we are caught up we've been in an Austin bubble for a long time. Austin and Texas, which are all both doing really well and have been. And so that really helps us. Everything around us is doing well. There is a national security, we call dual use bubble. All the flags where we are right now, this floor around us. I don't know if we probably haven't talked about it yet, but the Army, the Air Force, the Department of Defense, the Navy, a bunch of them are all stationed over there behind us in Capital Factory because they are not looking for guns, but they are looking for cool artificial intelligence and robots and vehicles and all kinds of other things that they can go use to help make them smarter and safer and better. And there's a lot of interest in that right now. So these bubbles, these market movements really matter. One of the best companies I've ever been involved in, actually all my best ones. So my first one, which I'll tell you about, was in email marketing as email boomed and took off. One of my next companies I really benefited from was a company called Bizarre Voice. My friend Brett Hurt started, and that was in the e-commerce bubble as e-commerce was really booming. The next one was WP Engine. Does anybody know WP Engine? Have you seen that? They're building downtown. So my friend Jason and I started that, and that company's been great. That was kind of the website WordPress bubble, and then Multicoin, which is a blockchain crypto fund that we helped start, and that one's been super successful, and that was obviously the crypto bubble. So Mark Cuban had a quote where he said, "If you're not in a bubble, get into one." And I don't think he's talking about you don't want the bubbles. I mean, there's the downside of bubbles that pop, and there's you can use the analogy different ways. But the idea of being something where there's a lot of attention and energy and momentum, that really helps. And again, as I look back to the things that have worked best for me, it's always been something that got caught up in something like that, something that was bigger than me, where I had everything, kind of the wind at my back. So as you're working on stuff, that's one of the questions you want to ask. What bubble are you in? Are any of you in a bubble? Are any of you working on something that you think is in a bubble right now? What's a bubble that's booming right now?
Running or wellness in general?
Sure, running and wellness. I think that's definitely. I mean, you can call it different things. Is it a trend? Is it whatever? But yeah, there's a lot of momentum behind that. Say it louder. AI is definitely a bubble. Man, every startup is an AI startup.
Healthier pet food. Wait, healthier pet food?
Healthier pet food. That probably is an intersection of the pet bubble and and the healthy bubble that we were just talking about. Louder, please. Everyone's got to speak up.
Sorry, I have a 5 minute cold. Climbing.
Climbing.
Yes. A lot
Like
of people in the new generation are doing climbing. From my
exercise or outdoors climbing. Yep.
Sustainability.
Sustainability. Sure.
Manufacturing.
Yeah, definitely. There's a big push, especially for onshore or nearshore manufacturing.
Product management.
Yeah. Tell me more.
Lots of people are just moving into the field, and historically it was kind of like a later in their career type of job, but now it's entry level.
Yeah.
climate change, mental health.
Climate change, mental health, both of them.
Real estate.
Real estate, always that's always a bubble. Well, it goes up and down, but yeah. So commercial real estate, not a bubble right now. Residential in some places is, right? So different ways to look at it. Marketplaces, maybe.
More military conflicts.
Yeah, definitely.
Fintech.
Fintech. Content creation. You guys are all good ones.
Cybersecurity.
Cyber. 2 more.
I was going to say social media marketing.
Sure. 1 more. Blockchain. All right, lots of good examples. All right, you guys know what bubbles are. So what I'm going to talk about for the rest of the time we have today, which is about an hour, is how to starting a company. And I give this talk at other places too, but I add the parentheses for you, which is in college. And it's even better in college. I started my first company when I was in college, which I'll tell you a little bit about. And there's no bad time to start a startup, but I think this is there's no reason to wait. So I've got 3 suggestions, and they're kind of not rocket science or anything, but I'll talk about them and I'll come back to them a few times here. But this jumping right to the end, here are the secrets of how to starting a company while you're in college. 1 is it's helpful if you actually know something about something. So maybe you know a lot about something already. Maybe you came into college as an expert. Most people don't. But there are a lot of things you can become an expert at really quickly. And usually it's helpful to know a lot about something. You usually can't do it all by yourself. Meeting a lot of other people is really helpful. Usually meeting people creates opportunities. And so meeting a lot of people is really good. So I would say if you had a goal, which would never be easier than it is for you in college, is meet somebody new every day. And you have to work hard. This is not going to happen easily. There's a reason why most people don't do it, and that's because it's a lot of work, and it's emotionally a lot of work, it's physically a lot of work, it's a lot of tough days before you get a brief good day, and then you're back to the grind, and that's part of entrepreneurship. But you better be expecting to work your ass off, so we'll talk about that more too. So for me, my personal slogan is I help people quit their jobs and become entrepreneurs. That's what we do here, and we do that here at Capital Factory. This is the big room downstairs, full of people. That was Satya, the CEO of Microsoft, and we've had so many great people down there. And Capital Factory really is all about people. It's all about connecting people together. Well, that was super cool, and it was awesome to have that room so full of people. The best part of that day was that 5 of our startups got to pitch to Satya, and got to see if talking to the CEO of Microsoft could help push their business forward. We've had President Obama here. We've had so many other interesting people come through. And that's, for us, like the secret of all of it is that everybody that comes through, a bunch of startups get to go pitch them, get to go tell them what they're working on. And every day there's different people coming through and startups getting to go pitch to them. And so that's the way for us that we help, that we add value, is that we're constantly putting them in front of different people that can help them. And then also, that's kind of our secret for knowing who's good. It's like, I don't actually know everything about rocket ships or about robots or lots of other things more than most other people, but I get to put them in front of all these other experts and see what they do and know if they like them or if they're going to invest or if they're going to work with them. And then we know who we should go work with. And so that's what we do here at Capital Factory. But I got started, and I had my first company when I was in college, and it had nothing to do with any of this. I wasn't in Austin. And it was all about email. And that actually was my license plate. It had said email. Email had paid for the car at the time. So how many people have heard like email's dead? Is that a thing anymore? It seems to kind of come up every 5 or 10 years. Email still hasn't died somehow. My claim to fame with email is I made one of the first email marketing companies, which was similar to like a MailChimp, if any of you have used MailChimp. It was actually really similar to MailChimp. I bootstrapped it like MailChimp. The main difference is I sold mine for $12 million, and they sold theirs for $12 billion. But other than that, like almost exactly the same. But very similar. But while I was doing that, and back in 1998, while I was, I think I was a sophomore or a junior, there was a big issue of people getting all these emails and not knowing how to get off them or stop them. This is actually, even to be honest, it was before spam. And so I was part of a group of other people, and we were talking about how big of a problem this was, and we needed to do something. We said, every email that you send needs to like have encoded in it how to get off the email, how to stop getting the email. And I had never done this before, but we figured out how you do this, and we wrote basically a spec for the internet that said, hey, if you send an email and you put this code hidden in the email, then anybody that gets it would know how to stop the email. And while we don't expect people to be looking for the codes, you could then, if everybody sent with the codes, then you could go put a button in the email that said, click here to unsubscribe. And you don't have to look for the people that change it to be like, the wrong color, or like use different words to talk how to unsubscribe, or the unsubscribe doesn't work, or different things like that. And so, so we wrote this spec back then, and that's actually what powers, this is Apple Mail on your phone, but that's what powers that unsubscribe button that shows up at the top and that working. And so if you go look up how to do that, it's called an RFC, and it's RFC 2369, and you'll see Grant Neufeld and Josh Baer listed at the top there for writing how to go do that. So that was my big email contribution. So I was doing a bunch of stuff with email. But I was like a sophomore, junior in college. So how did I know how to go write any of this? Well, first of all, it was all pretty new. Like not many other people had done any of it. So anything I was doing, any of these things, I could go learn myself pretty easily. And there weren't a lot of people that were experts at email. Like it was, this was kind of in the early days of email. But I bet as you look around, there's probably a 1,000 other things like that today that may not be email, but are other things that are new, that are interesting, that you can become an expert in just a short period of time. So for me, how did I get into email? Well, when I first got into college, I went to Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh, and my freshman year was the first year. Like at home, we were using a modem, like dial-up. There was no broadband, and so I got to school. There was no Wi-Fi yet. I'm dating myself, obviously, but we had just having like you could plug into the wall and be on the internet all the time was like a massive improvement. And because of that, that meant you could also run a server, which was much harder to do on a phone line or do from home. And back then, it was really simple. What everybody wanted to do was build a website. And like that was the cool new thing. Websites were programming, which I wouldn't really call it that today, but people thought would consider that programming. And if you wanted to run a website today, if you want to run a website, where would you go? Where? Wix. You go to Wix, or where else? WordPress or Squarespace, right? There's like you go to another website to build a website, right? I made that. I don't know if that That may not sound silly to you, but like back then it kind of did. And so now that's software as a service. That's SaaS. Actually, you never touch a server. You never think about that or anything if you're going to go run a website. But back then, if you wanted to run a website, there was no Wix or anything like that. And so if you wanted to run a website, you actually had to have a computer to run the website on. That probably all it did was run the website. Like you couldn't use it to do other stuff during the day. And that computer had to be connected to the internet all the time. So either had to have a phone line dedicated to it, so it had you had a computer plus a phone line just for that, and it was connected all the time, and it was really slow. Or if you got Ethernet and you're at your dorm room, you could just plug it in, and it could be on all the time. So that was super cool, because I could run a website. And so I really wanted to run a website, and there were two options for running a website. Either you could set up a Unix server and run HTTPD, which was like the Unix web server, which is not rocket science, but like is not the easy way to go do it, and was a lot harder than it is today. Or just like today, you could go buy a piece of software. Like there were commercial software out there that could go do it. That would be your web server, just like you might buy a Microsoft product or something like that. And so WebStar at the time, actually, from this company in Berkeley, was the best web server for the Mac. And I had a Mac, and so I wanted to run a website on my Mac, and so I really wanted this software called WebStar. And at the time, if you want, I could not, it probably cost $800 to buy the software. So like I was a college student, there was zero chance I was gonna buy any software for $800. And it wasn't even like you could download it, because nobody even downloaded any software. Like when you bought it, it came in the mail on like a CD-ROM. And so, because websites were just getting stood up, right? And so, so the best way for me to try to get access to software as a college student that I couldn't afford to buy was to try to sign up for beta programs, beta software. I don't know if any of you have done beta software. These days, beta software is usually like a free version that they put out first for consumer stuff anyway, right? They're like, here's the beta, come try the beta, right? That's actually was kind of a new thing, or not anymore, but since then. Back then, it was more like the beta was like the secret version we only give to our customers to like get feedback and test it before we roll it out, right? And again, it wasn't for things that were going to be free. It was for things they were going to sell for lots of money. So they didn't want to give out free versions of it and have you copy it or anything like that. And so you had to apply to be part of these beta programs. And so I go on and I'm thinking like, I gotta get on this WebStar beta program because I want to run the website and there's no way I can afford $800. So I go to their website and I see the form and I start filling it out to sign up for the beta program. And it asks questions like, how many websites do you run? I'm like, one. Which was a lie. It was actually zero, right? How many people go to your website? Like, how many thousands? I'm like, none, right? How much revenue does your company have? None. I didn't have very good answers to any of these questions. So, because they were trying to figure out, like, they want to pick people that could actually buy it, right? Like, they don't want to let anybody use it who's just going to ask a bunch of questions and be a pain in the butt. And so, so I filled out the form, and it wasn't feeling very good about it. But after I filled out the form, I looked, and right next to it, there was another form. And it was for this other software called ListStar. And to be honest, I had no idea what ListStar did, other than it had the same name. It was like WebStar and ListStar. It was from the same company. But it was really all the same questions to fill it out. And so I just filled out that one too. And I got rejected for the WebStar program. There were like, everybody was signing up for that. There was like, like 1 million people signing up. But, and so they were like, we don't need you. And sorry, you're not eligible. Please buy the software, when it comes out. But apparently, not that many people signed up for the ListStar one, because email wasn't quite as sexy or as popular. And so they let me in. And I'm pretty sure that's just because like they let in everybody. Like, it was one of those things, like you'd be surprised how many times there's a competition or a forum or something and you think like there's no way I get this, and actually like they think like, oh my God, I need like nobody's applying, like we need more people to apply because there aren't enough. And so so it probably was one of those cases. And so I get into this beta program for ListStar. And I'm like, cool, ListStar costs $800 too. Must be cool. But I'm like, what's it do? Like, I have no idea. So I get this box in the mail, because that's how you got software. And it had all, CD-ROM drives and a manual, like a book. And so it wasn't like big type. So I read the book and I like install the software. It turns out this is like email software. It's for running email lists. Like you have D-lists for, for classes, for groups, for things like that, or like MailChimp or Constant Contact or something like that would eventually make for customer lists. And so it was this early software for running your email server. And yeah, like I said, I just kind of dove in, and they had a group, an online, like today you would use social media, but they had a forum where everybody on the beta program, it was private, could ask questions. And the people from the company would answer the questions like once or twice a week. Like they'd log in and go answer everybody's questions. But people would ask questions every day, and I had read the manual. And I was a college student, so I was in front of my computer a lot. Like I didn't really have, I had my classes, but not too much else to do. And so I started answering people's questions, like just when I could, like I'd answer a bunch of the questions. And then eventually the CEO of the company sent me an email and reached out to me. It wasn't, probably a 50-person company. It wasn't that big of a company. And he said, hey, I noticed you answering all the questions, and it looks like you're a college student. Like, hey, would you be interested in maybe, being an intern at the company? And then we'll pay you to answer all the questions. And, it looks like you're studying computer science. Like, maybe there's some other stuff you can go do. And so very much by accident, I end up working for this email company. And then I got a copy of Liststar, or WebStar, because I worked for the company. So then I did get a copy of the WebStar program. So mission accomplished. But what that did is it got me into email. And suddenly I started becoming an expert at email. And as much as like email is like an important thing, it's not sexy. It's kind of obscure. It's not like I don't know many people that set a goal of becoming an expert at email. And so I very quickly became like the email guy. And as much as I was like a college student, like it's a pretty geeky profession, and I was pretty outgoing, and so then I noticed like there were cool conferences going on, and that's also where like free things got given out, and like all the interesting people were, you get to meet in person, I read about on the internet. And so I was thinking, what the heck, kind of get back to like applying for the software, the beta program, and you can't lose if you don't apply, and you can't win if you don't apply. I would see these at conferences, and I couldn't afford to go to the conference. I couldn't afford to buy a ticket, but speakers get to go for free. And I was thinking, like, they'd probably think it was kind of cool if a college kid submitted a speaker application, which they did. And so I started submitting proposals to speak about cool new things that were coming out that I was an expert at, because like anybody who spent 10 hours reading about it was an expert at it because it was brand new. And I would propose just interesting things, and I would get accepted to come speak at this conference. And then there were conferences my company was already going to anyway. And for the company, even though to me, like flying from Pittsburgh to California to go to a conference was like really expensive and a big deal, for the company, especially because I already got a speaker badge, like flying me out and like was putting up in a hotel room was like no big deal. So now I'm like getting to fly out to cool conferences and like speak and then hang out with the other speakers and like kind of meet all the people. And then it turns out when you're out at the conference, do you know who goes to conferences? Does anybody know who goes to conferences mostly from businesses? Who? Other companies, but who at the company? What titles? Who's going to the company? At the conference? Good, really good conferences are the chief executives, but no, most of them are not chief executives. What are trade shows and like things like that? You know who goes? Salespeople, right? Exactly. Salespeople go. They're trying to sell stuff. They got booths, right? And they're going. And other people are there too, but really, it's like salespeople go to all this stuff, right? And so the salespeople are going to conferences. And so, what do the salespeople want to go do? The salespeople are trying to sell stuff, and I get to meet and hang out with all the salespeople. I'm going out to dinner with the salespeople, and at the conference with the salespeople. So they get to know me. So then, one day, one of the salespeople sends me an email or calls me. They're like, Josh, I have this customer, and they're trying to buy our software. Imagine, it's like a piece of software like Microsoft Word. Like, they don't, add buttons to the software. It's not like the web or something, they don't add buttons for you or anything. They want it to do something it doesn't quite do, and we don't do that. No one on the team is going to go do that for them. But it is possible to go do it, right? And they knew that I had, was not a very good programmer or anything, but I was a student programmer. And they were like, I'm thinking, Josh, maybe if you could help them to go make this change, then maybe they buy it. And if you could hook me up, I'll buy you pizza. I was like, I'm hungry. And it sounded cool. And so I went and I wrote this little script that did the thing they needed to go do and helped the salesperson close their deal. And so then they were psyched and they got the thing and they sent me the pizza. And suddenly, I'm getting more calls from salespeople. And they're like, hey, I'm trying to close this deal. Can you help do this thing for this person, right? And I realized that there's a bunch of need to do kind of customization, little projects. And after they gave me a couple pizzas, I was like, why don't you just pay me to do it instead, right? But I was pretty happy to get 10, 15 bucks an hour, and like they were happy to pay it, and so suddenly I'm doing a bunch of these little projects. And I also, we're just for an analogy, imagine social media, Twitter and Instagram and YouTube and things like that. And these days it was email lists and Usenet and news groups. But I participated in all these different online groups as well, geeky ones like about email and other things like that. And I would post and answer questions for other people and just be talking to people all the time. And so I added something to my email signature that just said, hey, I can help with your email list. And then as I realized that, I started answering even more people's questions. And because it turns out when you answer people's questions, especially little ones, you know what they do? They ask you more questions. And so then they ask you harder questions. And so I would start answering people's questions for free, kind of a little freemium model, and then wait till they ask me a question or eventually they get fed up. They'd be like, I can't do this. Like, could you do it for me, right? And at that point, I'd be like, well, yeah, actually I can, but that's going to take me an hour or 2 or 3 hours or whatever. And would you mind paying me to do it? And inevitably, people would say yes, and they would pay me to go do it. So I built up my own basically little consulting business, getting paid first 10 bucks an hour, and then 20 bucks an hour, and then more to go do these little projects, and started doing more and more of those. And then one day, I had people that would call me a lot. I had some regular customers that were every time their server would crash, they'd call me, or every time they wanted to make a change or do something. And so then one day, one of my customers, it was one of my earliest customers, he called me up and he said, Josh, I've got this idea. He said, every time, man, this is before Wix or Squarespace or MailChimp or anything like that where you could go just pay to host something online. So this was going to sound stupid, but it was a really interesting, novel idea at the time. And he said, Josh, every time my server breaks, it's like a big pain in the butt. My server stops, it goes down, right? And people are trying to send emails and they can't, and it makes me look bad. And I call you, and usually you're waiting right when I call because you're a college kid. You're hanging around. No offense to college kids, but your schedules are a little easier than some other people's sometimes. Mine was. And he said, and you always fix it right away, and I pay you 50 bucks to fix it. But you, Josh, you run a server just like I do, and I'm on some of your email lists and some of your sites, and I'm sure your server crashes just like mine does. But I never notice it because you seem to be sitting there by your computer all the time, and you just you keep it working all the time. So how about instead of me calling you urgently every time my computer breaks and paying you 50 bucks, you just add my list to your server and you run it, and I'll just pay you 50 bucks a month. And I was like, okay, wait a minute. I'm on the school's network. My parents bought me this computer. I have no cost. This is 50 bucks a month of free beer money. This is awesome. This is the greatest thing ever. Because I'm thinking nothing's gonna go, I'm not gonna have to do anything. I'm very optimistic about the time. It wasn't that much, but so boom, I'm getting 50 bucks a month now. I don't have to do anything. I just gotta keep my computer. I'm already running the computer for myself. I just gotta keep it on and keep it working, and I get 50 bucks a month. Well, this may not sound revolutionary to you because most businesses work this way now. Everything is trying to be like this. This is software as a service. This is SaaS. But SaaS was not a word yet, and this was really cool. It was this really kind of revolutionary idea. And so now I want more people paying me 50 bucks a month, right? So I'm now that's why I add something to my signature in my email, and I'm like, hey, I can host your email list too, right? And I go start answering even more questions, right? And now, I basically try to find people that were having lots of problems and all fed up, and then I could start hosting their lists. And then I'm getting ones for 50 bucks a month, and then 100 bucks a month, and 200 bucks a month. Really big customers pay me 400 bucks a month. Suddenly, actually making pretty good money at the time. I thought it was pretty good, and by the time I graduated, we had hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in revenue. And I had a couple of my friends working for me. They were answering emails, doing customer service. I could, again, all things in perspective, I have 3 kids now. This would not apply today, but at the time, for my lifestyle, I could buy anything I wanted. I could I felt like I was living on top of the world. I was the most successful business person I knew, right? And it really wasn't that big of a business. And around here, it wouldn't be that big of a business, but it was a real business. And I owned the whole thing, and I'd done it all myself. Like, I didn't have any investors or anything like that. And at the time, and then I graduated, and it was 1999. It was like the peak of the first .com boom. And I really kind of like, it was a big debate. Like, do I go take a job somewhere and work somewhere? Like, people were hiring, and they were paying people lots of money, and it was like really exciting. And at the same time, I was like living in my fraternity house, like with all my friends, and like didn't, and like live, like felt like life was pretty good, right? And so it was a really interesting time. And so let's see, what's the next slide here? So that was me with hair, and running my I was an SAE at Carnegie Mellon. I was running it out of our fraternity house. That was where my thing was. Then and then that was it. The company 10 years after I started it, 2005. That was right here on this floor, actually. So before this floor was this floor, I had rented this floor for Skylist for my last company back in 2005. And eventually we took over other floors here, and then one day we took this floor back and we turned it into what it is today, the Center for Dual Use for all the government stuff. But that conference room was over there in the front. And we had about 60 people working for the company. And we've been growing it and building it for now total about 10 years, about 5 or 6 years after I graduated. And some of those people standing up there are people that went to school with me, probably 4 or 5 of them that were still working with me. And there certainly were people that were working with me at the beginning that weren't anymore. I learned a lot through all that process. But eventually what happened was we were doing a couple $1 million in revenue, maybe 3 or 4, which again felt really big to me, but we hadn't raised any venture capital or anything like that. I didn't really have a lot to compare it to. And things were great. And one of our customers, one of our biggest customers, raised a big round of funding, $60 million, so that they could go acquire other companies and technology and other things to help them grow. And so then they turned around and they bought us to bring us into what they were doing. We kept servicing other customers, but then we were able to help them a lot too. And wasn't ever expecting that to happen. I wasn't trying to sell the company or anything like that, although I was kind of ready after like 10 years. But it was all a very casual conversation. It was like a text message exchange of like, hey, I heard you raised a lot of money. They're like, yep, wasn't that awesome? I'm like, oh, cool, you should buy us. They're like, yeah, we should. Let's talk about that. Like, that was exactly how that went down. And like, 6 months later, like we sold it. And I probably could have or should have done it a lot of other different ways, but it worked out okay. And also in hindsight, like that was actually right at the time where we could have gone and raised a Series A. Like if you're gonna go raise a real round of venture capital, like you often will have $2 or $3 million in revenue. Like that's about the time you start to get really serious. But for me, it was a good time. It was the right time for me to sell it and to move on to the next thing. And I got to sell it, take a bunch of money off the table, get a bunch of experience out of that, and then go start new companies, start investing in other companies, other things like that. So I've got a few more things, or a bunch more things to talk about, but that's a quick version of my story. And I hope what you'll see in that is all those things that I talked about, and I'll touch on them some more. But one, I became an expert at something. Like I didn't even want to become an expert at it. It just happened by accident. But suddenly I was the email guy. I was like an expert at email. I knew something about something. I had something to add, right? And it wasn't in something that like I had studied for years. It wasn't in something that I even thought was going to be the biggest thing ever. Although pretty quickly on I realized like, wow, every day for the next 10 years, and this was probably true for the next 20 years, like every day businesses are going to wake up and be like, I should send email today, that weren't doing it before. And that did continue to happen forever. It was a really good market. But it wasn't something I tried to go do. But I really, I had to know something about something, right? Like I'd have something to bring to the table. I was a great networker. I was going to all these conferences. I was participating in all these online groups. I was meeting everybody involved in entrepreneurship at my school. I was just, I actually consider myself an introvert, not an extrovert. When I go home for the weekends, I want to go home and be by myself and recharge. If I have a big day like this, like I want to go be quiet. But to do my job, I have to talk to a lot of people and meet people and be extroverted. And certainly, that was a big part of me being successful, was having a lot of great people helping me and meeting a lot of people along the way. And then and I worked my ass off. I did, you know. And when I was in school, when I was a sophomore and a junior and a senior, and I was living in my fraternity house, and everybody else started partying at like 2 o'clock on Friday, and I worked till 10 o'clock on Friday night, you know, like, and I had my door open, and I could, like, everyone was, like, was around me partying, and I was still kind of like cranking through stuff, you know, and like, and they made fun of me for that, you know, like, and I still went out. I mean, like, I didn't have fun, but I just, you know, just like, but like, I definitely feel like I was working harder than most of the other people around me, you know, like, and I was setting goals for myself. I didn't hit a lot of them, but I was trying, you know. I was like, this summer, I'm gonna sell $100,000 worth of this thing, you know. Like, I had no idea. I didn't succeed, but I was trying. And so those three things, I think, really stuck true. So again, become an expert at something you're passionate about. Passion's an important part. It's really hard to be an expert at something you're not passionate about. It's really hard to be an entrepreneur working on something you're not passionate about. And we can talk more about that too. Meet somebody new every day and work your ass off. So, a couple more thoughts about that, and then we'll have time for questions, and we'll be done by 6. So, this is Paul Graham. Anybody know who Paul Graham is? Who's Paul Graham?
I actually don't know him that well. Like,
He's not your best friend?
no, I don't know about him.
What did he do?
He does have a website where he blogs.
He's got a great blog. I'm not sure which one he created. I know he does a lot about Lisp. He was a big Lisp expert, yeah. But yeah, Paul Graham has a great blog. He has one of my favorite books called Hackers and Painters. But he's the founder of Y Combinator. He also created GeoCities, which was a company that Yahoo bought, which was one of his big successes. But really brilliant thinker, really great entrepreneur, and really successful investor who's worked with lots and lots of amazing companies. And he said up here, to get startup ideas, it's necessary to have a fairly deep expertise in some domain. The idea is usually in the same domain, but it doesn't have to be. A startup idea can also consist of importing insights from one domain to another, like things, oh wow, I learned this over here and I can apply that to something else. So not always, right? But usually you got to know a lot about something. Did Mark Zuckerberg know a lot about something when he started Facebook? Like, I don't know. Like, I mean, he was a good programmer. You know, like, was it about Facebook and what they do really? I don't know. Maybe not every example is going to fit. But usually you kind of know a lot about something when you're doing it. The people I see working on stuff around Capital Factory, they're doing really interesting things. They're experts, right? They're like world experts at the thing they're trying to go do because they've just, they just voraciously consume it and wouldn't let anything else happen. So, are any of you experts? I mean, you are. But like, what are the things you're experts at? What could be one of your advantages? What are something you know a lot about and you could do something with?
I'm an international student myself, and like before coming studying here, so like I'm a 20 student, and like for all the students, like I was supposed to study somewhere, and like for me, it was a question of getting full ride somewhere, and like it's a hard task, especially if you like outside resident. So, and I got into programs that like kind of do help there. And then like I started learning about all different countries, how education system built. So I guess I become like not a complete expert, but like knowledgeable in a field of higher education in different countries. And like eventually I also built my own thing in Ukraine to help kids to get somewhere. But like eventually it didn't like grow as I was thinking. But it was a good experience.
Yeah. One of our founders we work with, invested in, Katie Fang, has a company called School Links. And she was an international student who was looking at trying to decide on which schools to go to and realized how challenging that was, and particularly with international students who often have just a different approach, different budget, different way that they're going and doing it. And that's where her company was born out of, was that experience. Who else?
I feel like most people are pretty good at social media.
Social media? So being good at it, like I think as soon as you say most people, then I'm like, well, then it's not something you're particularly good at if everybody's good at it. But I bet there are people here who are particularly good at social media. It might have that be something that's their expertise, where they really stand out. Anybody else? Is anybody really good at a particular sport? Anybody have a family business? Anybody?
It's a particular sport. I was the third best archer in the country, and 14-year-old when I was younger.
You're an archer.
Back in the day, yes.
Damn. All right. Don't give this man a bow around here. But all right. Well, so you know a lot about archery. That's definitely an expertise, right? You might have some insight there or something to bring to it.
I do a lot of I've been a lifeguard for 6 years, so I've gotten familiar with drowning statistics and 52% of kids can't swim. And in 2020 alone, there was 389 drownings of kids under 15. So that's basically what my startup focuses on.
Yeah, and from being working as a lifeguard for 6 years, you probably have some insights about what happens all along the spectrum, right? Through that thing that you might bring to the table that's some real experience. Yeah. I'm sorry, you guys. I got some noise behind me. You guys speak up.
I think I'm decent at skiing.
Skiing?
Yeah, and I've seen I remember at one point I tried looking for groups maybe to go with other college students, and there used to be a company in the area that would organize school trips for college students, but I don't think they ever really came back.
Yeah.
So maybe that would be an idea for especially now that we're in Texas. It's not exactly.
It's a little harder. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, so it's just a way to meet other people to go with that.
All right, one more.
Snake venom.
Snake venom. You're an expert at snake venom.
I'd say close. It's a huge.
There's probably not that many people that
No.
that are experts,
I
right?
might actually have that problem figuring out what to do in snake venom research because nobody does it.
Yeah.
Anywhere.
I bet that would be a good thing. Someone that I know, you'll find out people that you might know really well, and then you'll find out they have really interesting expertise. One of my dear friends, who I had no idea about her, she is a expert knife collector. Thousands of knives, goes to gun and knife shows, and is got her table set up and is selling knives, and she's an expert at knives. All right, great examples. All right, so meet a new person every day. This is a really important one. Opportunity comes from activity, from meeting people, from doing stuff. And people are what's going to move you forward. Talking to people is going to help you. Being really secretive is usually not going to help you. Most people that I talk to that are I can't talk to you about my startup, it's a secret. For most of the time, they should not be being a secret. There's nothing about it that's actually a secret or is going to get stolen. Every once in a while, you have some secret formula. Even still, you should be able to tell them what you do and just not tell them the secret formula. But yeah, usually you want to talk to lots of other people, and that really helps you. So, any ideas? Where can you go on campus right now to meet other entrepreneurs, other than coming to this class, which is a really good start? Anyone know of other groups?
The Herb Keller Center for Entrepreneurs.
Herb Keller Center. That's a great spot. They have a lot of programming.
Say again, Launchpad?
Launchpad, the UT Launchpad. Is that still at the Flan Center? Yep, so there's basically a co-working space in the middle of campus that's supposed to be accessible. They host events, and where chances are other people that are there are probably working on stuff.
There are some student organizations that at UT where some students especially when the classes work directly with startups.
Do you know the names of any of them?
Convergent, Momentum, to name a few.
Convergent and Momentum. So what do they do?
Basically they work. Convergent has nonprofits and startups, and then they have that's for
What do they do for them?
They have people just to kind of work for them. It's kind of free labor.
They code for you, right? They have programmers.
Yeah, a lot of my friends just describe it as
Free labor, yes. Basically, Convergent and I think Momentum's a similar program have student programmers who are available if you have an idea to help work with you on it and help build it, which a lot of people are looking for. There's other student organizations. Does anyone know of other student entrepreneurship organizations?
Yeah, I'd say one is Genesis, which is a student-led venture fund.
Genesis is a great program.
Another newer one is Texas Ventures. I think they consult with startups in Austin. They just offer free consulting services.
Yeah, those are all really great examples. Awesome. So yeah, you want to be around other entrepreneurs and other people that can help you, and doing that as much as you can. All right, and then you got to work hard. And my most helpful thing for you to help think about it is to look around you and then try to be real with yourself. Are you working harder than the people around you? That's not the only thing, but that'd be a great starting point. Because you can't all be working harder than everyone else around you, right? And I'm sure when I was in school, I was working harder than most of the other people around me. Architecture students, they were working really hard. Oh my God, they were like working all night, like they on the architecture stuff. But yeah, like that was the way I knew. So I think asking that question of yourself is really good. Looking around, thinking of like, what can I do? You don't really learn anything from thinking about things. Like maybe some philosophers do that stuff, but like that's not where you get deep insights from. It's not from like, oh, I've been thinking about this startup for so long and I figured it all out in my head and like now I'm gonna go build the perfect, no. That is like not the way things work, okay? Like, we learn from failure. You don't, when everything goes right, you don't really usually know why it went right. Like when things go wrong, you know all the reasons why it went wrong. Usually, not always, but a lot of times you're like, oh my God, this went wrong, that went wrong, this one. You learn from that, right? You learn from doing things. In the same way of like learning even what you're passionate about, what you want to do, you will learn that from doing things much more than you will learn it from thinking about it, waiting to be inspired. You go get inspired by doing things. I've never had this problem. I generally have like too many things I want to go do. So I'm, kind of like pretty, I have always a list. But like, if you can't decide, and I see a lot of people that get indecisive. They kind of feel like, I don't know where to start. Or like, I don't want to work on the wrong thing. What if I pick the wrong one? And I just would really encourage you to just pick something. Like if you're not sure, just pick something. Start with, you have a few options, pick one of them. Be like, okay, I'm gonna decide for now, it's gonna be that one. Give yourself a month. Be like, for the month, I'm doing that one. By the end of the month, or as soon as you know it's the wrong one, stop and try something else. But you're gonna learn so much more from doing things, from trying things, than from not. I mentioned the example of when I was one summer, it's one of the first summers where I didn't go home, and I was like at school all summer. It was like super cool to be away from my parents and like not have school going on and just be totally living by myself, and like it was great. But at the same time, like I was working, I had my company, like I was making money, but I wanted to like accomplish something, right? And we were doing the hosting, we were doing the SaaS business, right? Running the servers for people. But I knew, not much, but I knew I had a feeling that it'd be a better business long term if I could also have products, if like we could write software that people would want to buy, right? And so I had not done that before, but I basically wrote a little piece of software that sat next to Liststar that would do some of the things it didn't do, that I heard people asking for, with the idea that like maybe I could go sell this for like $100 a pop or something like that to all the people I knew that used Liststar. And so I set a goal at the beginning of the summer. I said, my goal is I'm going to sell $100,000 worth of this product. Oh my God, I had the worst name. It was called HKST, Head, Shoulders, Knees, no, HSKT, Head, Shoulders, Knees, and Toes. It was like adding like headers and footers and all these things onto the email messages. It's terrible. But I probably sold like 3. And I needed to sell like 1,000 to make my $100,000, right? So I totally failed, right? But that's how I was thinking. I was like sitting down at the beginning of the summer going, like, okay, like I'm gonna sell $100,000 worth of this thing. And I built it and I wrote it up and I sent emails to people and I failed utterly, but I tried, that's what I was trying to go do. And I don't know many other people that were trying to go do that, So yeah, trying matters. Opportunity comes from activity, comes from doing stuff. And just the more you can do, the more you'll learn. And you learn, so just, you see so many people sitting around talking to each other about entrepreneurship. That is not entrepreneurship. So, are any of you doing anything? Your snake venom? Are you extracting snake venom?
I wish.
No.
I just have a pet treat company.
A what?
Like a pet treat company.
Pet treats? Do you have any with you?
I don't. That's actually why I asked, because I saw your dog.
Pet treats? So, that's a great start. Who else?
So I have a problem like as an international student when I got here. So it's actually really hard to get connected with people in a way that it's easy. For example, you can see me, you have GroupMe, but it's as like no one uses it, it's useless, inconvenient. And like I kinda use this thing for my community that I'm part of. So there is an option like app probably many people use. So I built like kind of a template where like you have a photo person, his school where you go to, because like we got a lot of people in the United States who go to different school, and this is like for kind of mentorship and finding people. So it also has their majors, their interests, and what they're working on. So let's say there's like you'll be a status button that like I'm working on something, I need help with that, and all other people see like what is your interest, and you see other people, and you can like pop in and do stuff with them. So just like help people get in touch more easily.
So kind of a social network.
Kinda, yeah.
Awesome. Anybody else?
So I'm using artificial intelligence in my own software, which is supposed to be like kind of like what Copilot was meant to be, Microsoft Copilot. It was supposed to be tracked directly with computer hardware, but they ended up not doing that. So I wanted to fill the gap in by using like Copilot powered by ChatGPT and custom training prompts like if you have ChatGPT and using like the API refinement functionality that they have for it. So that way I could like give it its own like cases that it would go through when the user like talks with it, using voice or text, and it would interpret those cases, and inside the software that it made, it would then connect directly with the lab, with their computer. Like maybe if you wanted to open a Word document and solve it, it would do all of that for you. If you want to like open a website, it would do that. Those ones are basic.
So you can make it so you can talk to your computer better.
Yeah. So
Awesome.
It's, like, it's what Copilot's supposed to be. You can like use AI.
I thought Copilot was supposed to write code for you.
So there's two Copilots. One is the
Different Copilot. Okay, sorry.
and one is like the one you built with Windows.
Got it.
It's part of the new Windows one.
Got it. Awesome. One more?
I do like commercial, like contracting swim lessons program. So basically like swim lessons that are held at like the water park resorts, Kalahari, Typhoon, in like the Lakeville area before they open. So that way like it's more exposure, more awareness towards water safety, and there's like a little fun incentive afterwards.
Nice. All right, and then one more. You had one too.
Yeah, over the summer I made a website called Scraper that will basically tell you the people that you follow on Instagram that aren't following you back.
Yeah.
It's about 100 views a day.
Do you have a little Instagram tool that tells you about your graph?
For you to be toxic with online, basically.
Yeah, it's kind of. I remember there was one that would like tell you when people unfollow you. It's like you're not supposed to know, but it would warn you. Awesome. Well, those are great examples. So yeah, again, you're gonna learn from doing stuff. Now, at some point, like you gotta like know when to stop, right? And only you can know that or tell yourself. But when it's not the right thing, you gotta stop. And that's one of the hardest things about entrepreneurship, right? Is you hear all these stories about people who are like, oh, like everything went wrong, and I just didn't quit, and I held on, and I finally made it, and like you're like. And it makes it sound like the answer is like to like just never quit, right? But that's not but actually there are times when you should quit. Like when there's other times where it's like really smart. Like, oh, I did this and it didn't work, so I changed and I learned something and I did something different and I moved to it. And the magic is figuring out which one of those things it is. So again, those are my quick pieces of advice. How to starting a company. That's what I find most of the people here are thinking about or asking me. And I don't think this is like. There's nothing I could tell you that's gonna like follow this and everything's gonna work out okay. But this is definitely like when I think about like what really works, what really matters, like these are the things. Like it's, and I think if you follow all these things, you will see opportunities come out of it. So, lastly, I'm gonna give you kind of a top 10 list of some what I call the fine print. Well, the top 10 list is like. Just specific suggestions. I always like to give in addition to those are great advice, but it's not like, well, okay, what do I do differently? Like here's like very specific suggestions that you'll take home. I'll share this deck as well. And then we'll open it up to questions. The fine print is this is my advice. This is what I would do. Like you have to figure out if it's what you should do. Like I am a computer guy. Like that's where my background is. Like I have kids, I have my own set of problems. And so that's my first piece of advice. When I talked about like pick a problem, become an expert at something you're passionate about, it's way easier to be passionate about something if it's something that affects you or your family or like people you care about. And it's not the only way to do it. Like there's lots of people that don't do that. But personally, if I could like pick anything and you could kind of pick anything, you're starting from scratch. So like if I could pick from all the things I could work on, like I'll pick something you care a lot about. Because it's like really hard. It takes a really long time. You have to work a lot and you get really depressed and you like go through all these things. And if you don't care about it and you don't like, it doesn't matter to you, like, it's gonna be hard to make it through all that, and it's not gonna mean nearly as much at the end. And it's super cool when you do things that matter to you, and it affects people in your life or things like that. We talked about, a lot of people asked about teams. Like, I would definitely find co-founders, find people that can help you, find people that care about this as much as you. And it may be a little counterintuitive, but the best co-founder is an equal co-founder. And I have not had many opportunities to have that. I've been a solo co-founder many times too. But the best co-founder is someone who is going to be just as committed to it as you, who's going to bring their own stuff to the table just as much as you, who has the skin in the game just as much as you, who is going to feel like it's just as much their responsibility as you. And that's the best situation. It's not always what it is. There's all kinds of different ways it can be, but that's the best situation. And I think you'll find most of the time that there's very few people that are successful just by themselves, whether they call them different things or not, whether they're called a co-founder or a president or a chairman or an advisor or a COO. Most people need to be complemented by other people. Like, you're good at some things and there's other people really good at other things, and it takes a lot to go do this. It's also really lonely at the top. Like, again, entrepreneurship is hard. Like, it really is. There's a reason why most people don't do it. Most people do not like it. They do not find it. It's not comfortable. It's not, there's like brief periods of like these big highs and lots of like in the dirt and in the trenches. And I love it. I think it's worth it, but it's not for everybody. And having other people with you matters a lot. I think this more than ever now, but I would bootstrap at the beginning. Bootstrapping is figuring out ways to do things without external funding. As much as I am an investor and I help people get investors all the time, the longer that you can wait to do this until you really know what you're going to do with the money, until you really have product market fit, the better. Most people feel like, I have this great idea, all I need is money and everything's going to be easy. That is almost always wrong. Money is often actually a bad influence at the beginning. It lets you do the wrong thing. And when you are constrained, when you don't have much money, it makes you really focus on doing the right thing. And so that's a general piece of advice I would give. There's so many more and more ways to do this now than ever, but the more that you can talk to customers before you launch, the more that you can get commitments or even paid from customers before you launch, doing things like Kickstarter, using blockchain, using other ways to raise funding from customers. There's more ways than ever to do it, and it's a great resource. I talked about not having secrets. I would talk to as many people as you can, and just tell them what you're doing and what you need help with and who you need to meet. I would talk to your competitors. I would talk to them. Those often can be people that you'll end up working with. This is probably an old slide for you guys at this point, because you probably wouldn't do anything else. But I generally would focus on mobile. I think one thing versus the other. Mobile versus a computer. Mobile is more of the bubble. You're going to easier get adoption and people to go use it. Certainly you leverage AI, and whatever you're going to do, figure out how that's going to affect what's happening, because AI is going to affect so many businesses over the next few years. I would do my best, and this is part of bootstrapping, is to build some kind of minimum viable product, build something without any code, without hiring any programmers. How can I hack it together? Because it's getting so much easier to go do that. These days you can practically ask ChatGPT to build it for you. And so again, don't feel limited by that. I would outsource as many things as you can that are not your secret sauce. Like, you have to really understand, like, about my business, what makes us special? That's the part I should own. And then what things are the things we do that everybody like me is going to do that like are the same with everybody? Those are good things to outsource. Your accounting is good to outsource. You don't want to have special accounting. You want to have like boring accounting, right? You want your accounting to be just like everybody else's. For most people, building their website is something they can outsource. It's like not something that it really matters that they do it themselves. If you're building like a game, like an app, like a game on a phone, you probably need to design it yourself. Like, you can't just hire someone to design it. Like, that's the whole thing with the game, right? If you are coding something that, where the algorithm is the key part, you probably need to have that talent in-house. It depends what you go do. And the APIs part is that more and more now you can outsource things to services, to things that aren't even people, but are that they're automated. And lastly, kind of like you're doing here, like we talked about doing at school, I would surround yourself with other entrepreneurs. They're going to motivate you. They're going to share ideas. You want to be around other people that are working on things. And so coming here is a really good start. But I would do that as much as you can at school too, at the launch pad, at other classes, taking the entrepreneurship minor, going to the Kelleher events, going to other things going on campus, participating in other groups like Genesis and Freshman Founders and other things like that. Those are all really great things. So that really is the end. I might have one more quote, but we have about 15 minutes left. What other questions do you guys have about anything from that, about my journey, about entrepreneurship, about the class, or about anything else?
How much stock would you put into starting your startup either in Silicon Valley, Seattle, or Austin?
How much what?
How much stock would you put into it? Like how much emphasis would you put into? Like,
How important is it whether you start your company in Austin or Silicon Valley? Let's see. There's lots of opinions. Some things that are probably easier to say as facts. It's easier now than ever. I don't think anybody would argue with that. Matters less now than ever where you go do it, both because Austin has grown and because COVID has made everything matter less. I don't think it's in any way bad to go to Silicon Valley. Like, it's full of really smart people at their A game. And that can be a really good thing. Again, you want to surround yourself with other people. There's a lot of great people there. I think there are trade-offs. First of all, personally, I think there's a lot of things about California and Silicon Valley that have become very toxic, that have gone too far and have kind of circled around themselves. And so it doesn't make for actually like a great place to live. It's not like a place where I would really want to be. And also, it's its own kind of like a different kind of bubble where like everybody, is in that world, and there's good things and bad things about that. Yeah, so I think those are all kind of different trade-offs. But like I said, there's definitely not a bad thing to go there. Like I don't think it's like Austin or nothing or something like that. It's easier than ever to do stuff now. It's only going to keep getting easier, and with the trend of how things are going, if you look at where the smartest people in the world are moving to, like a lot of them are moving from Silicon Valley to Texas. You go first.
As a CS student yourself, how do you balance your course load with like making a startup, and also would you prioritize getting industry experience before going into startup, like getting a job after you graduate, or would you dive headfirst into making a startup?
Yeah, so you asked about, first of all, you said as a CS student, how do you balance your course load with doing entrepreneurship, and should you pursue entrepreneurship or maybe go get some industry experience first? Again, I don't think there's any right answer to that. Like there's different things for different people, and it depends where you're at. I was studying computer science. I am like not the best programmer in the world. I mean, like, I have a computer science degree from like a really good school that I barely graduated with, and like everybody I know is a better programmer than me. Because I have that, I think I'm able to manage programmers and make investments in technology and do a lot of other things really well that it gives me an advantage at. But I'm not trying to be the best programmer. And so for me, for example, like going into industry, which I've certainly done in different ways, wasn't as important for that part of it. And business experience, there's just different trade-offs, and a lot of it depends on you and where you're at. But there are some things you can learn very well on your own in business, and there's other things that are it's really great to have great mentors and to work under other people. When you talk about working in industry, as far as towards entrepreneurship, I would focus less on I want to go work at some big company and get experience there, because I don't think a lot of that's not relevant experience. I would think like if you're inspired by something, if you know what you want to go do it. If you're not inspired by something, if you don't have the thing you want to go do, go identify a super high growth company that is going to be very successful, that's already obviously going to be very successful, but is not, it's kind of early in their journey, maybe Series A, Series B, and go work for that company and get to be inside of a great company that's growing really fast and get to see how all that works and who does what and what happens and get to meet other people in that company and be part of teams that are working on things. And while you're working there, you're going to get exposed to all kinds of problems they have, problems other companies have. You're going to meet people that work there that are like, oh, that's somebody I'd want to work with. That's somebody I want to work with. That's somebody I want to work with. And then you might kind of discover the next thing you want to go do. But I think it's really different for different people. And part of it's like where you are in your journey. Like I just kind of knew, like, I had a thing. I wanted to go do my thing. Like, and I had all these things I wanted to go do. Like, I didn't want to go, work for somebody. And I didn't want to go take, that wasn't interesting for me. But again, I had a very clear idea of what I wanted to go do.
Yeah, I have a question about, like, kind of talk about throughout your journey from you getting your first pizza or fish dollar to selling them to 14 million. I was wondering which one of those, like, steps, was it like your first dollar or a selling company for X amount of millions of dollars, which ones felt the best?
I think the first time, like, you look at your own bank account, it's not the company's bank account, and you've got like more than $1 million in it. That's like, you're like, oh, there's like a sense of relief of like, oh, like I did, like I don't have to worry about something. I'm like, that was definitely. Like, there's lots of moments, but I think that was a really big one.
Why should you not be secretive about entrepreneurial ideas?
Why should you not be secretive about your ideas? Because most of the time, ideas are not this like the rare thing. It's execution and talent and people. And so, so for example, like I have a lot of ideas of things that I think are good ideas that I would like to go do. I can't go do all of them, right? Like my limit is not ideas; it's like things to go do. And I already have something to do. So if you give me an idea, it better be like a really fucking good idea. If I'm going to quit doing Capital Factory and all the other stuff I'm doing to go steal your idea and go focus on that. And even then, that means I'm going to like just from hearing your idea, I'm going to like have to catch up to you and in my mind now recreate, like you think I'm not going to go do the exact same thing that you would go do because you're going to go do different things and like take it into, like chances are we wouldn't even end up doing the exact same thing. So if it's like I figured out some new like way to, I don't know, like I'm trying to think of a good example, but like some new, kind of metal or something like that. It's like, and there's like a secret formula or something, right? Like, again, you can still tell people, I figured out a new kind of metal. It's way stronger. It doesn't, just don't tell them the formula, right? It's not that you can't have secrets, but like most people's secrets are like, I can't tell you what I'm working on. Like that's silly. Like there's like, for most people, like that doesn't make any sense. Like if you're like, I don't know, Elon Musk launching your next new thing. Yeah, you might not want to tell anybody what you're working on because it's different, right? You have a reason to keep, but none of us have a reason to keep it a secret. So it's much more of that like, don't be worried about people stealing your ideas. That's much less likely. They would, if it's so easy for someone to just hear your idea and steal it, it's probably not that good of an idea or you're not really the right person to go do it. And again, maybe in talking about it, you'll find the right person and be able to partner with them to go work on it. And I just, in my experience of working with thousands of companies and talking about it with so many, I can probably count on my hand the number of times people have accused other people of like stealing their ideas. It just doesn't actually happen like that often. Like it does happen where people say it, and usually, to me, it still sounds kind of silly. It's just like, it's just not something that happens a lot. And then lastly, and the benefit you're going to get back is immense. So like you get nothing if you don't talk to anybody. You get a lot from talking to people. Like that, it helps you.
What if you're a science guy and kind of have like social anxiety?
Did you say shy or science guy?
Science guy.
Okay, so you're correlating social anxiety with science.
Maybe, yeah.
I mean, I think there's a whole bunch of things about that, right? Like, first of all, I probably don't look like I have that right now, but when I was your age, I probably did. And I have a lot of experience and practice and reasons to be confident up here that make it so that I might not look like that or have that, right? But this is something you get from experience and from learning and from doing and from trying. And so you can make yourself better. And that's really just by doing it. So like being here in this class and getting up and pitching and like making yourself go do it is gonna help you get better about it and not feel so bad and like be more comfortable doing it. And at the same time, that's part of why we have co-founders. Because some people are just naturally better at it, right? Like that's their thing. They're really good at it. And other people are like, no, that makes me sick. I don't want to do that. Like, like that's not my thing. My thing is like, I want to go build this thing. I'm going to go do this. And like, you can't go do that, right? That's cool. That's great, That said, in general, it's a good skill to have. The more you can defend yourself, promote yourself, like talk about what's important to you, can be convincing to other people. That's a helpful thing in most situations.
You said you should know when to quit. When you're building a business, like, when do you know that you should just abandon ship?
No, actually what I was saying is it's impossible to know when to quit. If that's the hard thing. That's what's so hard is you don't, I can't tell you when to quit, right? Because some people are like, don't ever quit, and like they didn't quit and it worked out, and like they're like, look, the answer was like I didn't quit. And then there's other people like they should quit. Like I watch them, I'm like, oh my God, why are they still working on that? Like, like they're a good person and they have good things, but they're going down a dead end, But I've seen, and the flip side, I do know lots of stories of companies that were like about to die, like they were so close to dying, it was so close to being a failure, and they just like were just like they didn't know they didn't know why they were holding on or what they're holding on for, but they kept it from dying, and then somebody came along and bought them. It was like something changed and boom, and they made it, and suddenly it was a big success. And it was because they didn't die, because they didn't quit, but that's the art, not the science. Like that's the that's where you got to figure that out for yourself.
How important is it to have like a backup out of college? Like let's say, for various reasons, either you started too late or every single one of your ventures failed in your 4 years, so you're out of college, you don't really have an idea, you have the spirit, no idea, no money.
Go join another company, and where you can learn and be part of a team and get experience, and then have the opportunity to work, do stuff inside. Or go drive Uber and just be working on your startup all the time. If you can figure out some way to go do that. But I don't know. You got to pay your bills. You got to right, and you don't want to be doing nothing. You'd rather that's why I say go join a high growth company where you're going to get a lot of experience, and get paid, and be meeting the people you need to go start your next company. Did you have one?
What was your experience like going from founder to investor?
Everybody likes that. Pretty good. Yeah, goes from my problem to not my problem a little bit, I'm just being real with you, it's one thing, we know that's what sucks about being the CEO, right? And being the founder, it's in the end, shit stops here. It's your problem, When you're an investor in 10 companies or 100 companies, it's a portfolio strategy. You want to help them all, but they're not all going to work. If one of them dies, I don't die. It doesn't ruin my day the same way it ruins the CEO's day. And so it's a very different lifestyle. For me, what I love about running Capital Factory is it's a little bit of the best of both worlds because I'm an investor and I get to do all the investor stuff. But Capital Factory is also more than just an investor. It's also a company, right? And we have many more employees than most investors would have. We're doing we put on big events and parties and things, and we're working with DARPA and the government and all this other stuff. And so it's we get to do a little bit of both, which is really fun for me. But yeah, I'd say most people like it.
Do you find Series A, Series B companies that are looking for talent other than going on Y Combinator's website?
How do I find the companies
Yeah.
that are looking for talent?
Yeah.
Or just the companies that I want to invest in? What was the looking for talent part?
If you're trying to recruit for a company and get some experience, but you're not really sure what you want.
Oh, how do you find the companies to go work for?
Right.
Oh, great. Okay. So, who are the high growth companies I should go meet with? One part of that would be coming, to places like this and, asking people like this. One thing would be me. People would be looking at the university and seeing which companies, are really cool people working on, professors and other things. Looking at the news at who's raising money, right? That's not the only thing that matters, but that'll be one of the indicators. And then how you'll find out about them is you'll read about them in the news that they're raising big rounds of funding or things like that. The best thing is looking at other talented people, right? So find really smart people that are graduating and see where they're going to work, right? Because the really good companies are recruiting, right? And they're going to pull people in. We got time for a couple more questions.
How would you weigh the significance between good product versus good market?
What product versus market? Personally, I would go market and team over product because the product will evolve and change, and a really great team will be able to change the product, right? You can't change, it's hard to change the team, it's hard to change the market, you can change the product, right? And I talked earlier about it being in a bubble. Like being in a great market makes up for a ton of stuff. You can have like a crappy product and a crappy team and a great market, and it will make money because there's just so many customers and so much stuff going on. It's that dumb things happen, which is, I mean, don't be proud of, but like, yeah, it's like having wind at your back versus a headwind versus a tailwind. One more question.
There's no question. Would you ever have a deal or work with the government?
Would I what?
Would you ever work or have a deal with the government?
I do now. I right now do. Yeah, we do a lot of work with the government. I like regularly meet with 4-star generals and secretaries, and we just got a big contract with DARPA that was announced like last week. We're helping them to evaluate technology that's coming out of that. So yeah, we do. I mean, I probably changed my feeling about that a lot since the beginning, because I would have said no like 10 or 15 years ago. But actually, what I've learned is, not the only way, but most really big important things get funded by the government. Like, I mean, that's just like, that's how you get billions of dollars to go do stuff, like really big important things and like build robots and rocket ships, and like it's the government funding all that. And so yeah, if we want to go do really important things and change the world, like we want to work with them to go do that. My general take. But we've got to balance everything. Like there's trade-offs. It's both hard to work with the government, and like doesn't mean you don't always agree with everything the government's doing, right? But like, are you gonna? My general take is like, am I going to be a force for good, like a positive? Do I want to be like inside making it better, or outside, kind of tearing it down? And I generally find I can be more effective inside making it better. Awesome. Thank you all for listening. We are right on time. This is the attendance slide, so you can take a snapshot of that and let us know you're here. And we will be back next week. Next week we'll be doing the co-founder speed pitch. We'll send you an email with all the details. I really encourage each of you to make it a goal to get up and do the pitch. You'll meet people, you'll get people to help you, and then it'll make me happy. So I hope we'll see as many of you pitch next week as possible. And what am I forgetting?
There's t-shirts on the back table.
Oh, t-shirts.
Feel free to grab one.
Grab a t-shirt. There's a Longhorn robot.
And I have parking waivers. So if you parked here, this will help you get cheap parking.
$5 parking passes.
So come up to me.
Awesome. Glad you're here. Nice to meet you.
That is smart. Ready to work on your wine combinator? First of all, how's it going? Oh, you did? I thought we had
But I'm actually not that there's actually
Oh, my name's Alan. Jonathan. What do you do? I'm in my first year. Yeah. Thank you. I'm an Why do yeah, right? I was like, I'm so happy I did it. Right? I thought it was going to be more stressful. I'm happy. Yeah, right?
it's like inspiring.
So you're like interested in what you're making into
I think a lot of behavioral understanding why people do what they do. That's the thought process. Something I'm very interested in.
Yeah, I guess I'm like kind of along the same like avenue. I mean, like a lot of roads. Yeah, like my teacher was, she was talking about her research, and I did a bunch of writing courses on like you know Andrew.
I actually just got it.
Stanford professor.
Last semester.
Yeah, Google Brain team. I'm really interested in like simulating the brain. I'm just West Miami. It's called Pembroke.
Feel free to take the extra pizza.
I just sell people.
What have you been up to this semester?
Over the summer I was trying to do that.
Don't actually go check out my Instagram because I'm not.
You look like a chess.
Really?
Chess.com. I get 5. Yeah, don't worry. I learned chess practice.
So all your family's there?
Yeah.
Would you want to go back there after?
I'm not sure. Maybe I want to make it like so much information into something else.
Yeah.
Bring something new. Fresh air.
I would always make jokes to my mom like, oh, when I go there, I want to make like a short form mini because yeah, you too.
Yeah.
Trying to also there's like you. I'm just like I have like a mental noise that like you could stay. You like sounds like he seems to be. And then the archery. I don't know if he's a UT archery, I'm not exactly a kid yet. I haven't wanted to come to I can do the time. Wait, it's a lot of
I'll get a shirt.
I don't know, I just read like animal encyclopedias when I was in reptiles or just like always been big. When I was 10, I got a gecko and now I have like 10 reptiles. So I've got a couple different types of geckos, and then geckos are not the name, it's been sorry. And then I've got like baby dragons. Honestly, I have an app that like reminds me like daily of like what I need to do on each one because they all are different schedules. But I don't know, it's just a fun thing. Like I don't go out and do anything because my weekends are like cleaning tanks and like reptiles. Yeah. What's your name? I'm Alex. Something that's oh yeah. That's cool.
So that was my first project.
Oh shit! We did it! Like, where's your butt? And now I
accidentally.
Yeah, pretty much. I knew something else. My older yeah, no, I'm surprised. You know,
oh, you don't
like cheese is like cheese options. I think they have Hawaiian.
Yeah, I saw that.
It's like that's
the last four.
I know, yeah. Pineapple. No, I know a lot of people do, and it's just health-wise.
Yeah.
kind of why I say, I mean, I had no idea.
Yeah, no, like I'm probably gonna do like a picture. I feel like either way I can. I'm not gonna be. I'm not gonna be. We're in UT.
I think somewhere down the line, maybe in messaging, it's involved in that. But yeah, do you have any ideas for any, taking shots out of curiosity?
Wait, say that again.
Like, did you like curiosity or like
More curiosity. Yeah, it was like meeting people. I assume they're gonna be pretty interesting. Yeah, those are friends. I guess because it's good. Again, it's a festival.
I know.
So, but I will have to figure out. I really don't want to tell my. I don't think that. I hope they don't. I find that strange. Like for some reason I couldn't get it like past 6. I couldn't buy it past 6.
It's 3 after 6. That's fine.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's fine.
The meter only goes to 6 because after that.
Yeah. Wait. Because I thought it was like, oh, your breaking expires, and I was like, wait, and then it said check signage because I couldn't buy it.
Last time I was here, I parked like 1 block that way. So it's like telling me how the system works. I mean, eventually he like asked me, but basically it's telling me like it only goes until 6. After that,
yeah, I mean, if you want to, I'm going to do like something later.
yeah, of course. I'd be like $3.
Otherwise, I mean, I'll try this.
Give a class from 2 to 3, yeah. I'm trying to get into a class 2:15. Like it's closed.
Yeah.
Sports schedule for the time for things like got my interviews and you go to so I don't know if I do end up getting into that class. I'm sure you know, my apartment is like kind of far away. It's like 15 minutes long. Like it's 25th and St. Gabriel.
Oh, okay. Because I'm like 30th. You know where the fire station is on 30th Street? Like where Taco Joint is kind of. Yeah. It's like also maybe like a, but it's still like
yeah. I guess it depends on what part of this is like I go like get out of this one. I don't know. I think we'll.
We can reach something.
Good. I mean, took the MCAT.
How do you feel?
Good. I mean, I'll probably have a score in 2.5 weeks. We'll see. And then added some clinical after and so got my but yeah, I guess write my thesis. It'll be alright.
Pretty much like I do not want to do thesis.
Yeah. The thing is like these kind of like I already I might as well finish it out.
And I think it was part of it was just like talking to, there's like other polymaths and I was like talking to her. And I mean one of them was like, oh, I barely even talked about it for grad applications. Like I still got it. And I was like, wait, I'm like, yeah. Is it worth the stress to do it then? Like,
I program, you know what
per day.
what type of
I'm thinking like mechanics. Mechanics. I mean, I've been like involved in it once in a while. Like, I did a little bit of research like outside of it. But there's not that much. I'll see you exactly. I guess you get a chance to talk about it.
I thought I had to that way. Did you know Andrew before, or you just met him today?
No, I just met him today.
Andrew and I. Yeah, we say more and he's called one. Yeah, sorry, I'm curious.
Yeah, so is it like, I mean, as a TA, it's just like organized as possible.
What's it like?
So it's like there's barely
Like, it's probably like the best team job.
It's like, yeah, it's pretty sweet.
You found sweet.
And it's like you gotta talk to these people. And it's just like, I'm assuming at this point you don't have anything else going on, given that it's past 6. Or like you don't have any other class activities.
Lots of stuff. I do have a meeting for Everett and Andrew Arsenal. It's spiritual.
Okay.
I mean, it's not.
Yeah, it's like there seems to be.
First, probably after next class, like people will know what.
Oh,
I think you're gonna speak.
I might try. Just, I mean, just
good practice.
Yeah, good practice. And it's like if I might get $100, like you know what? It's
yeah. It's like you know how to feel. What you talk about?
I need to like actually make it more concrete for like one of them, like with like Kickstarter type thing. I've seen it before with like Kickstarter for research, so there is actually a website that does it. Having just skimmed it, I don't know how good they actually are. It's like if they're actually that successful. I'm like, oh, if there's a way, you know, one, market it better, two, like find a way to like build a network with maybe like universities. Again, it would be like an idea. It's not actually like, oh, I'm doing this thing already, and like I already have the website set up, blah blah blah. It's like, oh, this would probably be cool. Like, figure something. Again,
So
I wouldn't be mad about $100. Like, it's,
so it's like a platform,
like you know Kickstarter, right?
kind of.
Yeah. So just like do that, but like for research. What about you?
Also, I mean, it's like we got so far. Like basically, it's like numbers, like there's like being experts on stuff with obviously like no, a lot of teachers are doing like oh, it's so. I think most like I do clinical monitoring and stuff, something like that. Some ways to it's not something patient visualization space. I know there's like a lot of companies out there where I should look what's out there, see if they do their still understand based on my experience. Yeah, I mean we still work on it because we can help me
that's probably the most accessible. In the future, we cool to get involved with
But still, like,
especially like any type of machine,
oh yeah, I guess I'm waiting for. Wait, so it's Andrew's or Everett?
Yeah, Andrew's over there. Everett.
Yeah, Everett and Andrew.
I think everybody.
At this point, it's like most people are gone, so.
Yeah.
Grab some water.
Hey guys, we're about to have a meetup here at 6:30, so in like 1 minute, could everyone slowly make their way out? I'm sorry, I would love for you all to stay.
Oh yeah, Ron. I said bro,
You gotta be so careful. You gotta believe it's so important to double screw this and this and double that.
I'd definitely be interested in all the stuff. I guess this is the program.
Thanks. Bye. I think a lot of people that are thinking about those things, but our focus is on some aspects of it. And like businesses that have been like we're focused on. Like if you're able to say Capital Factory after my there's usually about 2 events happening every week. There's something about to happen in over the next and so there's always meetups, all different topics, artificial intelligence, defense, social media, nonprofits, and all and
Yeah, and I was wondering, how do you like get started? I mean, because I feel like if I'm doing something by myself, then I'm not going to get very far. And then without anything to show other people, no one's really going to come on board. So
Yeah, I mean that's kind of, that's the hard part of getting started. Exactly, yeah. It's like I need the elephant, I'm like, I just got to figure out like what's that internally redoing everything. There's for one of your first jobs, is what you're going to go down. That's the best. So that's the thing.
awesome. Thank you so much.
Cool, it sounds cool. Look forward to it. See you around.
Thank you.
Everybody thinks everything, yeah, sure. Everybody thinks everything's wrong. That was, yeah. Everybody thinks everything's wrong. What? Everybody thinks everything's wrong. Yeah, I was just trying to get hurt. Yeah. Great job. You guys definitely know what bubbles are. That was great. Yeah, really well done. Well, all right. Next week's almost the hardest. So you copy the release? Okay, I copied the old base, read the forms so they're like updated for this time, and just deleted like the old data. It's safe, like the old data is safe. So I don't think that's what we're trying. I think what you need to do is you copy the old base. Yeah. Right? And then now you call it. Okay. Yeah. So that's like when you copy the old one. Okay. Because there's links on the website. Oh, that's what I did. That's what I did. Yeah. No. It's safe. Okay, sorry. I'm explaining this absolutely. Yeah, so you want to just copy it. The new one, you can call it old. Yes. And that way now what was the original is still alive. Yes, that's what I did. That's what I did. That's exactly. Yeah. Because that way all the links stay. Because the thing that I need to do is I need to move, because I can create a new base inside Longhorn Startup Lab missions, but I made it inside a workspace, like recognized system. So that's still just the Yeah, exactly. And then I just need to tell right. Right, we just need to move it, and then it works. Quick talk. Sorry, one last thing. The logo for on the video. We might have the first like 2 seconds to get rid of that so that And honestly, we should make a new video. That one's really old. Yes, that was. It's like it's held up well, but it's like it's really old. Yeah, that makes sense. Hey, can I call you for a second? Yeah. I'm not gonna call you now.
Alright, awesome. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. If you need help, let me have you set up real quick. Alright, did you guys want to do a live stream today? What do you mean? Like a video or something? Yeah, because you guys, I don't know, but it's just like the YouTube live stream.
The tequila is moving. All points.
Está haciendo los eventos del